Okay. All right. All right. I want to welcome everybody to tonight's webinar. And I want to start out by saying that if you have any questions, make sure you write them down. And then at the end of the day, or at the end of this talk, I'll open up the floor for any questions that you have. Before we get started, I'm going to be giving Tuesday night many webinars all the way up until my level 3 or my I'm going to actually change the name of it from formerly level 3 to movement disorders. All right, so this is going to be in Tupelo, Mississippi. This is going to be in my clinic. And the reason we have to have it in my clinic is because of all of my brain-based therapy, my neurofeedback, my right eye, all of those things for neurofeedback that we actually have patients do to help with movement disorders and early onset Alzheimer's, dementia, Parkinson's, those kind of things. All of those therapies are in my clinic. So I need to show you how to use those. And you can go on to barlowbrainandbody.com. You can register October. And this one is going to be a 2-day seminar. I know I give a lot of 3-day or 2.5-day seminars. This one will be a 2-day seminar. It's going to be Friday and it's going to be Saturday. And this is going to be covering movement disorders. This is also basal ganglion, cerebellum. We'll touch a little bit on Alzheimer's at this and how to detect early stages. So you can make a huge impact if you get it early. When we get into stage 5, you're just not going to make any impact. So I don't take those patients for care. And let's see what else I was going to say. Also, when you come to Tupelo on the 15th, Saturday, I'm actually doing an outside talk on early onset Alzheimer's, dementia, and Parkinson's. And I was telling Randall about this before. I have a website in which I market to, and I pre-recorded it. And on this website is my movement disorder movement disorder, Alzheimer's, and dementia website. And it's a webinar, and on there, I market on TV to, hey, go at the convenience of in your own home, privacy of your own home, at your convenience, go check out my website. And today I had a patient come in, and it was an $18,961 program. So, and the crazy thing is, his wife came in, I think it was last week, she paid $13,961. And so you got a wife paying $13,961 for a 9-month program. He came in for $18,961 for an 18-month program because neurologically, see, I actually do a neurological exam on patients. And this tells me how long it's going to take to optimize your recovery. And just like a lady that's in the clinic right now, she came in today with hip pain. And so this woman has been to 6 different healthcare professionals with 0 answers. And I mean, this is the insanity that I have to deal with every day. Okay, 6 different people for hip pain. Nobody had looked at her lumbar spine. L4 and L5 was 30 in stage 3 degeneration, which is about 30 years of damage, because she didn't really complain of low back. It was all in the hip. Okay, and then I asked her about her car wreck, and then she's 54 years old. So work with me here just a second. She's 54. She had a car wreck, rear-ended at 22. So that's going to put her at about 32 years since the damage. And see, stage 3 is about 30 years of damage in the spine. And now she comes in and she's got this little tick that she kind of does. She's like, just sporadically. It's every once in a while. It's like just not as often as what I'm doing here, but it'd be like every 30 to 45 seconds. Now, when I do the tuning fork, now this is her toe, or this is her little toe, and on her toe is like moving like this. Okay, I'm like, what's up with that toe? And her husband's like, oh, she got restless leg syndrome as well. So she got this verbal smacking, like this lip smacking, every once in a while. She didn't even know she did it. She's so unconscious, it's so subconscious, she didn't even realize she does this anymore. And I'm like, this lip smacking and your toe doing this and your restless leg syndrome, all of those are linked to your basal ganglion, which is a movement disorder. And so see, my point here is with this, when you don't come to these seminars where there's, I can train you on how to look at this stuff and identify it and observe your patients, you miss all of these things. And then what you do is you go in like the other 6 clinics that she's been to, you go in, look at the hip, you're banging bones, you're doing a stretch, you're doing PT, you're doing a cortisol shot, and you're not addressing the underlying problem. Okay. And this is why, I flip the F out sometimes on these webinars, is because I asked her, about the last chiropractor she went to, and guess what he did? Laid her on her back, on her stomach, pounded down her back, stretched her hip a little bit, and sent her home. Okay. No exam, nothing. Okay. And then same thing with the physical therapist, and the medical doctor was just as bad. So, I trained medical doctors, I trained PhDs. I don't let anybody off the hook because they're just as bad as chiropractors, or chiropractors are just as bad as medical doctors. They don't do an exam because medical doctors, the patients over here are like, yak, yak, yak. And the doctor's like, okay, just tell me what your symptoms are, and I'm gonna give you a list of medications. We'll start at the top, work to the bottom. And then a chiropractor, the patient's over here, yak, 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 yak. And the doctor's like, the chiropractor's like, I wish you'd shut your freaking pie hole, because what I'm gonna do is the flying 7 when I get done with you. Okay. And again, these people, and then chiropractors wonder why we get the rap that we do. Okay, quacks, charlatans, whatever. Well, hell, why don't you try being a freaking real doctor for a change? Why don't you come to one of my seminars and learn how to be a damn doctor for a change? And when somebody comes in with hip pain and back pain, and you start seeing this smacking, and you start seeing her toe twitching when you do the vibration, and you find out she's got restless leg, why don't you actually treat the whole body instead of just banging bones? Okay, and that's what we're going to talk about tonight. We're going to do an intro to movement disorders. Now, believe it or not, this is a completely untapped market. So I see all of these, consultants going after knee pain and peripheral neuropathy and frozen shoulder. And the reality of it is, I've taught most of these people how to do this, okay, through my neurology seminars. And then some people kind of, bastardize it a little bit, well, a lot, because when you come to my seminars and I talk about frozen shoulder, I talk about the neurology behind frozen shoulder. And then the same thing with knee pain and knee and peripheral neuropathy. When these people come into your clinic, you have to know how to address joint issues, okay, because they're going to come in for peripheral neuropathy, knee pain, low back pain, frozen shoulder, carpal tunnel. I was giving a seminar in Houston, Texas this past weekend. I gave 3 seminars in a day and a half. One on the east side of Houston, one on the west side of Houston, and I was blessed to be able to go to ErgoFlex and be able to give a 4-hour seminar there. But at the seminar, at one of the seminars I gave for early onset Alzheimer's, dementia, and Parkinson's, I told him, I said, nobody in here just has focus, attention, and concentration. None of you just have stage 2, 3, or 4 Alzheimer's. I said, believe it or not, when you have inflammation and antibodies, you actually have headaches. How many of you have headaches? Half of them raise your hand. How many of you have neck pain? How many of you have joint pain, shoulder, back, hip, knee? How many of you have peripheral neuropathy? They almost all raise their hand. How many have balance disorder? They almost all raise their hands. So see, you can't just focus on one thing. These are multivariate problems, and you have to have a doctor that knows how to address all of these issues. Okay, so let's get into it. So with these movement disorders, okay, all right, so I'm sorry, I was just looking at my cell phone. With these movement disorders, it basically boils down to 3 major subgroups. So when a patient comes into the clinic, what we want to know is, number one, is this person having a movement disorder at rest? Okay, so like this woman was having a movement disorder at rest, like just every once in a while. And see, she was having a movement disorder at rest where her toe was moving, and then she was having restless leg. Okay, so she's having this problem at rest. So the next question, is she having problems in movement, or it's called kinetic motion? Okay, so if we are in movement, are we having some type of movement disorder? Like, for example, if I put my finger on my nose, okay, we can have initial tremors, okay, we can have kinetic breakdown tremors, or we can have terminal tremors. But again, if we break this down where you can actually comprehend it, it boils down to basically 3 types of movement disorders when you look at somebody. Is the person there and having a movement disorder at rest? Are they having a movement disorder when they initiate movement? And then, are they having a movement disorder during rest and when initiating movement? So those are the three major categories. All right. Now there's a ton of subcategories, but you know what? If we go, all right, when this person is just sitting there and they're having some type of movement disorder, like a SMAC, Tourette's, Parkinson's, just using that as an example. When I was in Conroe, I was giving a exam on a lady that was having early onset seizure disorders. See, these are movement disorders at rest, typically. Okay, you can be walking and this happen, but typically with her, she's doing nothing and just has a seizure. All right. Now with these movement disorders in which you're sitting still or you're resting, these are going to be basal ganglionic disorders. You have a direct pathway in your basal ganglion and you have an indirect pathway. Now, the direct pathway, what it does is it amplifies movement. And the indirect pathway, it has an I in it, so it's very easy to remember this. The indirect pathway in the basal ganglion, it actually inhibits movement. So like here, I'm moving my hands, but I'm moving them in a way in which I want to move them. If I had this movement disorder, let's say, for example, I'm moving my hand out or I want to touch something. If I say, touch this camera, and I go, see how slow this movement is? That's a movement disorder. But see, if you don't know that, you're like, well, he touched the tip of the camera. Or if you say, put your finger on your nose and you're going really, 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 really slow. Okay, that's a direct pathway problem. All right, in the basal ganglion. Now, so let's back up. You've got three major movement disorders. One, are they at rest? Number two, are they in motion? Number three, are they rest and in motion? The one that's where we rest is going to be a basal ganglion problem. So then we got to figure out, okay, there's a direct pathway and an indirect pathway. So which one of these is malfunctioning? If you have it when you're moving, it's almost always a cerebellar problem. Now there's a situation where I can stand here and do this. I don't know if you can pick this up. Surely you can with my head moving. That's called an essential tremor. That's a cerebellar problem, and this is hereditary. So almost in neurology, every time you hear something in neurology, there's always an exception to the rule. So that's going to be an exception. I'm standing here and my head moving. That's called an essential tremor. That's a basal ganglion. That is a hereditary genetic problem. Okay, if we're sitting here and I'm at rest and my arm's moving, and then I go into motion and my arm's moving, okay, these are a type of psychological disorder, and this is due to metabolic issues that have to be addressed: autoimmunity, inflammatory, blood sugar, hypoxia. But there's some type of metabolic disorder that's affecting like the basal ganglion, spinal cord, cerebellum, and could be the cerebrospinal tract as well. That's actually damaging these areas. So a gross overview here now, again at 30,000 feet. So basal ganglion, these are going to be movement disorders at rest. And so this lady comes in and she's got this little smack every once in a while. Her little toe is moving, and then she's got restless legs. So how do we decode this from a patient who comes in and what she came in with was hip pain? And I'm telling you, you cannot fix the hip pain and the back pain without addressing this metabolic issue with this basal ganglionic escape in the indirect pathway. Okay, so so what we have to do here is I'll answer the question here. Let's see, with an essential tremor, can they improve, or do they constantly? I'll have to pull that back up because, all right. So anyway, I'll answer the question at the end if you don't mind. And if you want to, you can just unmute yourself at the end and then just ask the question. So all right. So anyway, and let me get back to my train of thought. So we got basal ganglion. The basal ganglion, the indirect pathway is going to inhibit movement. So see, think of it like this: your brain, every part of your brain kind of has a gas pedal and a brake pedal. In your basal ganglion, you have a gas pedal and a brake pedal. The brake pedal is going to be your indirect pathway. It inhibits movement. And your direct pathway is your gas pedal, which it amplifies movement. So if I've got my foot on the brake, see, and I'm at a stop sign, let's just say, then I'm supposed to stop. My car's not supposed to move. But if my foot slips off the brake, what happens? See that indirect pathway, now we've got this slippage and the car moves forward and we slam on the brake again. And see, this is the same situation with this lady that has this, okay? And then the little toe is doing this and she got restless leg. So the indirect pathway is not inhibiting movement. So we get this basal ganglionic escape in which we're moving. So these things will happen at rest. Now there's a ton of different neurological systems that are named that you can have when you have an indirect pathway that's failing in the basal ganglion. But if we just know that the main thing is that if we're at rest and we get a movement disorder, it's a basal ganglion indirect pathway. Now, also when it comes to Parkinson's, what happens is that with Parkinson's, you actually are going to lose your direct pathway first. And don't worry, I know some of y'all are like, man, we're going to get to the cerebellum tonight. No, we're not. We're going to get to the physiological movement disorders. No, we're not. I mean, this is going to be about a 20-minute seminar or so, and then we're going to wrap it up and ask questions. So in the basal ganglion, the direct pathway is what gives you that boom, that amplitude. That's the gas pedal. Let's move. Let's go, 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 go. And you got the indirect pathway going, pump the brakes, pump the brakes, slow down, whoa, whoa, whoa. And let's make everything work together. So direct pathway is amplitude. So what happens in this situation, the direct pathway allows us to have appropriate arm swing. It allows us to stand up in a direct posture and move. All right. Now, when this direct pathway starts to fail, you start to see people slow down. They slow down in movement. That you get to the point where you don't see them swing their arms anymore. Okay. They've got rigidity in their proximal shoulders. Their shoulders, I guess you can have a distal shoulder, but proximal joints and the shoulders and hips, okay, they start to slow down there. They take smaller steps. They start to shuffle, all right, because see, they don't have that oomph. They can't move at the speed they need to, so they slow down. So I want you to start looking at every patient that comes into your clinic starting tomorrow. How do they move? Are they moving with an appropriate gait, with a foot distance with each step appropriate? Do they have an arm swing? 6 months ago, or whenever I gave my last level 3 seminar, I said, I guarantee you on Monday, you're going to have new patients come in that's going to have early signs of Parkinson's. And if you didn't come to this seminar, you wouldn't even know what to deal with. You wouldn't even know what to look for. Swear to God, my hand on the Bible, the first guy that came into the clinic after my movement disorder seminar 6 months ago, or whenever it was, guy comes in with peripheral neuropathy. That's his main symptom. All right. And I noticed he doesn't have an arm swing. And I go, brother, I got to tell you, I know you came in with neuropathy, but you got early onset Parkinson or Parkinsonism because you have no arm swing. And he goes, oh my God, my brother died of Parkinson's. And you know what? If the guy hadn't came into this clinic, he may have died from Parkinson's as well, because freaking most of these MRI doctors don't even know what to look for because they're too busy, again, pounding down the symptom instead of actually addressing the whole person. So again, he had a direct pathway, and typically with Parkinson's, it's the direct pathway that fails first. So you don't have enough dopamine that's coming out of the substantia nigra pars compacta, and so that the alpha-synuclein that's in your gut, that's actually the first movement disorder. So you get alpha-synuclein buildup in the gut, and then it travels literally up the vagus nerve. And then it gets into the brainstem area. Then you can have these Parkinson's plus, which we'll talk about some of these next week. And it's like multiple systems atrophy. Those are a Parkinson plus syndrome. Okay. And so, and then from the brainstem, in top of the brainstem, we have the mesencephalon, where we have the substantia nigra pars compacta. And see, that's where your dopamine is made. And so your dopamine is made in the substantia nigra pars compacta. It's sent through the ventral tegmental nucleus, and then it fires back to the basal ganglion direct and indirect pathway. And it's the dopamine that actually activates that system. It turns the system on. So if you don't have adequate dopamine, one of the first things that happens is you start to get slowness of movement. You start to get slowness of thought. So again, you start to see people moving very slowly. And then when you tell somebody to put their fingers out to do finger to nose, and let's be honest, we got 14 people on this webinar, and I guarantee you 12 of you aren't even doing this test. But you take their hand out and you say, put your finger on your nose, stick your hand straight out, and you see this slow movement right here. Basal ganglion indirect pathway has to be addressed. All right, and you say, I want to take this finger, put it on the tip of your nose, and they're like this. Okay, and they may even hit their nose, and you go, because you don't know this, you're like, oh my God, he hit his nose. Well, yeah, because the cerebellum is intact, but the basal ganglion indirect pathway is failing. Okay, because of this magnitude. See how slow we're going right here. All right, and then you do this thing that's called rock, paper, knife, and then they're like very, very slow. It's a direct pathway. And then see, like the last weekend when I was in Conroe and the girl was having seizure disorder, and I'm going to get ready for any questions because they're coming up right after this. And see, I want to see if any of you can figure this out. This woman has been to multiple doctors. A seizure disorder is a movement disorder. All right, so she started out 10 years ago with fainting spells, and she probably got a type of orthostatic hypotension. And believe it or not, these can be seizure disorders through the basal ganglion indirect pathway because this thing fails and then boom, she falls over. All right. So fast forward now, she's starting to pass out, literally like have seizures now from just the passing out or fainting kind of thing. So we know right there that she has an indirect pathway in the basal ganglion that's firing. This is a movement disorder. She has a seizure. All right. Now, and so she's moving when she's not supposed to be moving. That's called, well, there's a lot of things that you could call that, but a seizure is one of those. You're moving when you don't want to move, seizure activity. So I go, tell me what happens before the seizure. And she says, I get this funny sensation. Now, see, most of you, instead of asking the right question, would actually just speculate that I have this sensation. And you would probably think sensation in the body. Well, where was her sensation? It was auditory. Okay. Auditory stimulation. And I go, so that means temporal lobe. Temporal lobe is malfunctioning. So the temporal lobe fires to the basal ganglion through the direct and indirect pathway, and this thing is escaping. So what's happening is before she has her seizure, she has this temporal lobe that goes into seizure activity because it's misfiring. And I go, which ear do you hear it in? And she goes, right ear. So that's almost guaranteed that this is a left temporal lobe problem. So now we've got a seizure disorder. She got an auditory sound. There was something else that I asked her, and I can't remember. It's not because I'm in stage 4 Alzheimer's. It was last Saturday, and I had a lot going on between now and then. But there was something else that was saying left temporal lobe. And then I go in and I do the blind spot mapping, and she misses up here in the top right field. And I had all those doctors at the seminar, and I'm like, it's like, man, it's like after a while, you kind of get tired of being right to prove to somebody that you know what you're talking about. And I told her, I said, you're going to miss up here in this visual field. And then she missed with her finger to nose somehow. I can't remember what happened, but with this right side, she was missing with her finger to nose. And I was missing it on purpose, by the way, just in case some of you were wondering. So we're going to wrap this up. So what happened is with this woman, we had to do metabolic testing. That's $8,907 in this clinic, plus all the brain-based therapy that had to be done. And she can either do the program or the problem can get worse. She's in her late 40s. So she gets to decide what she wants to do with her life. I don't decide that. I just tell her what I can do for her. So we're going to wrap this up. I'm going to open the floor up for questions. And don't forget about my seminar coming up October the 15th. Let's see, what day is it? 14th to 15th. Okay. In Tupelo. So this week, we're going to be talking about mainly the big picture. And I want you to do this with every patient that comes into your office between this week and next week. If they're having the movement disorder, are they having it at rest? Okay. Are they having it in motion? Are they having it in rest and motion? Typically, this one right here, rest and motion, very seldom do I ever see this. But most of these problems are going to be at rest, or we're going to have it in motion. At rest, it's a basal ganglion problem. In motion, it's a cerebellar problem. So next week, we'll go more into the cerebellar issues and how to address that. And but for more information on how to actually observe a patient having this and actually what to do about it metabolically and neurologic, you got to get to my seminar so you can learn more about this information. I'm going to open up the floor for any questions. I hope this has been helpful for some of you. I gave you some information on what you need to start looking for every patient that comes in from this point. And so, so we have.
Chad had asked, with essential tremors, can they improve or do they continually decline because of hereditary?
What you need to do is this. If they don't do the program, they're going to get worse. And see, it's all about managing the patient's expectations, because we're going to have to do metabolic testing, because with the essential tremors, do they also have, we know it's a genetic problem, but do they also have any autoimmune disorder that's attacking the cerebellum? Do they have GAD65 antibodies? Do they have cerebellar antibodies? Gluten sensitivity loves to attack the cerebellum. So if they've got a gluten sensitivity problem, we got to fix that. If they have a leaky gut, that's got to get solved. If they have insulin resistant or type 2 diabetes, that has to be solved. If they have anemia. So again, the answer to the question is yes, if they follow your program, you're going to give the cerebellum the greatest opportunity to heal. Okay. So the answer to it is, if they follow your program, they should improve. Nobody's going to be definite. Sometimes people want absolutes. If in this field, if you want absolutes, you should have gone into engineering. I'm not saying anything to Chad. I'm just saying in the world, in healthcare, if you want absolutes, you're not going to get that, because again, what if you run the gluten test and the woman or the person says, I don't want to get off gluten, or they have a dairy problem and they want to get dairy, or they've got a leaky gut and you put them through a leaky gut program and they don't want to go through the detox program, or they're type 2 diabetic and they don't want to quit, drinking sodas. So again, there's a high probability that you can slow this process down, but the patient has to be committed to doing it as well. You can't be more committed than the patient.
Really quick, Andy, can we point out that if people can't make it, I know Brian had just posted in there, he's not going to be able to make the live seminar, but 3 days after you do your live in-person seminar, you can have it available for people who weren't able to attend it, correct?
Yeah, the seminar is $1,500, and if you can come to it, it's going to be much more powerful, because you're going to get hands-on. There's going to be observations and those kind of things that we can do. But if you cannot attend the seminar, see, there's no excuse. In any of my seminars from now, there's no excuse, because within 3 days of giving the live seminar, this thing will be available within 3 days online. But make no mistake about it, is that this being at the seminar live is totally different than watching it online. But the next best thing to being live is
Can you hear me?
God. Yeah, man.
Hey, real quick. The treatment, and you say their range of motion is better and they don't really feel it. What do you use?
Now, what kind of what are we talking about here?
I'll just take range of motion, for example. Do you use motion guidance to show them that they made results?
Again, see that this has to do, I see chronically ill people, okay? And I'm not, except for when I see people with knee pain and frozen shoulder, like with my frozen shoulder seminar that I'm giving in 2 months in Conroe, Texas. Yes, we expect to see results in 2 visits, or we're not going to accept care. With knee pain, yes, in 2 visits. But but see, what if a person, let me just back up. To me, it's all about managing the patient's expectations. Just like the gentleman that came in this afternoon, his program was $18,961, and it's an 18-month program. I mean, there's no way that he's going to come in here in 1 or 2 visits and see results. I mean, he's just so neurologically damaged that's just an unrealistic expectation for me. It's an unrealistic expectation for him. But again, it may be in the way that, so what are you doing? We got 2 minutes. So what are you doing prior and post to the treatment? And when you say range of motion, what are you talking about? What area of the body?
Well, just take the shoulder, for instance. If you're
Okay.
looking to get results with the shoulder, I know your program with the neurologist is lengthy. Some of it's up to 9 months. Some doctors refer out to that after, they work with the knee and whatever. But just, I guess, or the shoulder. So just take the knee, for instance, or the shoulder, for instance.
Are you still there? We lost you. Okay. But until Josh comes back on, like for my shoulder, my frozen shoulder program that I have is a 2-visit program. It's $4,950, and the patient has to pay me up front before I touch their shoulder. And the deal is, if I don't get full range of motion in 2 visits, I give them a full refund. Now, I've only had to get back 4 refunds in 1 year. But if I don't have a person with a frozen shoulder, I'm glad we give the refund back, because I don't want to charge somebody for something that I'm not rendering the service. So, and see, some of these, it's about managing the patient's expectations. If you have a frozen shoulder, it's 2 visits, it's $4,950. If I don't get results in 2 visits, you get a full refund. I'm going to be, I got less than a minute here. With knee pain, if we don't get results in 2 visits, I don't accept the patient for care. But if a patient comes into the clinic, almost everybody's going to see results in the first visit because of the neural reconnect system that we use. But it's just like with neuropathy or something like that, that's completely unrealistic to think that somebody's going to see any results in 1 visit. I mean, I have nobody in here with neuropathy that's on less than a 9-month program. And this is doing PRP treatment, regenerative medicine treatment, lasers, and Hacomed, different types of stimulation that we're doing. It's still taking 9 months to get these people to their optimal state. So, that's the minimum program that I have. So if you're seeing people and your consultant telling you to see people for 2-3 months, I'm just telling you that